Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Echo Stream. I'm your host, Davis Aurini, and I am joined by the lovely lady Heidrun. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderful, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great, except my dog just walked over and she seems to expect something right now.
Oh.
You literally laid on the couch for 3 hours. I start live streaming, now you expect something. Here's a nice stretch. That's all you're getting for a little bit. Assuming my dog allows it, we do have a bit of a stream for you tonight. And, well, you know what? I want to start off. You said something that I thought was very, very pithy about how you start by destroying the men and you go from there. Could you mind sharing that? Would you mind sharing that with the audience, Heidrun?
Oh, sure. It just follows the natural dominance hierarchy. So what I've observed is that if an interest, shall we say, wants to completely dominate and ultimately destroy a people, it first takes out its best men, its superior men, and that in turn leaves only the inferior men. Now, inferior men, they can't get laid to save their lives, unlike the superior males. So they will cater to the whims and wants of women. So what the inferior men do is then indulge women essentially in what they want, and we've seen that in the West, voting rights and so forth. So then you destroy the women, which is easy enough to do once you've destroyed all the men, and then the women in turn destroy the children, either literally through abortion or just not having them, or they ruin them emotionally and spiritually. And then ultimately the children destroy themselves. And you'll either completely eliminate a bloodline in that way, or you will make it so pliable and malleable that it just becomes a drone species at that point that you can imprint with whatever programming you want.
Yeah, and what struck me about this is that most of that is just Manosphere 101. Like, you go back to Rod Fetters, he talks about how you start off, well, he missed the first step. You start off by empowering the women against the men. You empower the lower against the higher, because the higher has a natural protective instinct of the lower. And when you empower the lower against the higher, you know, the higher doesn't know what the hell to do, because men don't hit women. And so when you raise women up to men's level, they are prone to hit men. And so it started off with feminism, divorce law, etc. And after they did that, what we've been seeing for the past 20 years, and it's been growing, is they're empowering the children against the mothers.
Yes.
So this is like when we were growing up, it was your parent tells you to do something you don't like, I'll phone Child Protective Services. These days, it's, I learned that I'm genderqueer and non-binary from Tumblr on the internet, on the smartphone you gave me. And if you don't let me take hormones, then I'm going to sue you in court for being a bad parent.
Right.
And the parents don't know what the hell to do about that. Now, what you caught on, though, the bit that was missed there was the men in the first place. Because over the past century, we have had two extremely destructive wars. World War I and World War II wound up destroying the bloodlines that should have been reproducing. Yeah, I got a friend. His late grandfather fought in World War II. And his grandfather used to get drunk and stomp around the house, smashing holes in the walls, while listening to German marching tunes and screaming, "We killed all the good Germans." He wasn't exactly a wonderful person. But he was absolutely correct about that. You know, the Germans that died in World War II were the good ones. And now we're left over, like what we have left over is that comedic couple from Super Troopers. You know, who wants a mustache ride? Though that's what we have left. Yeah, I'm a fun boy. And you know, we want that, but ours aren't much better.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you take a look at essentially what World War I and World War II were, they were set brother against brother.
Yeah, it was like the Civil War.
Mm-hmm. And I'm getting a little bit of an echo, or I was, just letting you know.
Oh, this is the echo hour.
Okay.
Yeah, guys, don't like this. This is the one piece I think so many people miss. This is how exceptionally destructive these wars were, and that the people that died were the best people, the people that should have lived. The cowards survived those wars, and so you look at this this MGTOW movement, this anger at women. Well, you know what? I've got a little bit of sympathy for the women because there are so few real men out there.
Well, and it's all. Oh, that's a big echo.
Is it still there?
I think it's coming from the room. Do you have your speakers on?
Yes. Let me try one more time, then I'll switch to headphones.
Okay. I guess I got to hold down the fort here.
All right. Is it working this time?
It won't take too long. How's everybody doing tonight in the chat? Do we have any moderators?
I do not. I don't see Bombadil here.
Okay.
Lots of that.
I don't know. Welcome back, by the way. Oh, there he is.
There he is. All right. So yeah, tell me if it echoes again. So the headphones give me a massive headache, folks.
Okay.
Google doesn't like me streaming, so they add the echo just to disrupt my equilibrium.
Yeah, what I was going to say is it was the men who abandoned society. I mean, when you think about it, and I think I might have mentioned this before on your stream at one point, the superior males, the alpha males, the ones who create and build and maintain civilization, they're the gatekeepers of that. And at some point, they must have relinquished their dominance. They gave over to their lessers power and freedom that their lessers did not earn. And that's how this all started. So at some point, they weakened and made poor decisions. Hello? Is he gone again? Uh-oh.
People knocking on my door. Yippee-ki-yay. Interruption hour.
Sorry. Did you hear what I said, or do you need me to repeat it?
No, I completely missed it. But I assume you were talking about how the men that bred, the betas, the cowards, the weak men, they create a generation of weak men that bent over for feminism.
Right, but what I said was that the men who actually built civilization in the first place, who would have been the alphas, the best of the best, they were the gatekeepers of that civilization. They held that power. So at some point, they must have made the decision to give over that power to their lessers. That was their mistake. They gave that over to those who did not earn it. And then those who did not earn it do what people who do not earn do, which is they squandered it, they misused it, they abused it, they began to tear civilization apart.
Well, and this connects to the title of the live stream, Warrior Society versus Mercantile Empire. Guys, let's nerd out for just a second here, because I know every single one of you plays Civilization 5. And the social policies, there's two social policies in the game, the honor stream and the mercantile stream. Now, again, Civilization is a game. There's an end game to it. You want to win. So typically, if you're trying to do a domination victory, you'll go the honor route. But forget about the winning the game and think about what is implied by this system, because it's even right here in the game. There's two significant factors that you get from honor. There is the warrior code. Sorry. Yes, Space Dog, I love you.
Heavy breathing on the Aurini stream.
It's the interruption hour.
We're going to raise the Kundalini.
Oh, exactly. I think my shekel rods are going to be out of sync for this one. Okay, what the hell was I trying to say? Military tradition gives your units 50% more experience, and military caste adds happiness and culture to each city that has a garrisoned unit in it. So your military units aren't just for waging war. First of all, there's just a benefit to having them. And second of all, what happens in Civilization 5 when you get experience for your units is they become significant factors. They become vital resources that you don't want to lose. So if you're doing the honor tradition, or you're doing the honor policy, and you get this really badass army, it's like, yeah, you use it to put down barbarians here and there. And yeah, there's benefits to waging the occasional minor land war to get concessions from your neighbors, but you do not want to sacrifice your men. Your men are too damn important, right? Like this is a good general. His men are too damn important to sacrifice them on a suicide mission. Now contrast that to the commerce policy stream. One of the bits you get with commerce is mercenary army, which allows you to purchase really cheap landsnecks. Basically, cheap cheeser soldiers, and you don't care whether they live or die. And this is just a long way of going about how warrior societies that have an honor code, tend not to actually be that violent. It's the mercantile societies that wind up being violent, that wind up treating people like cheap, replaceable units, both in the workplace and on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
It was Steele that pointed this out initially, by the way. And you guys should also go subscribe to his channel because he just interviewed Heidrun recently, and he's got great interviews over there.
Yeah, I had fun. It was a great interview. Definitely some good stuff we talked about, so check that out.
Oh, I enjoyed it. It was excellent.
Like and share.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
That's right.
But yes, he was pointing out that he's pointed out many times that the Spartans almost never went to war just because it was like you put this much energy into training a soldier, you don't want them dying for pointless bullshit.
Right.
The people that go to war are the people that can hire the big slave army or the giant mercenary army. It's the bankers who are warlike. And it's also part of the usurious banking system is that it constantly needs more and more input all the time. It's not okay for it just to tend to its own hearth. It constantly needs new resources.
And it keeps everybody in a state of war because that's how it makes its money. It pits one of its customers against another of its customers.
This is the mechanical god Leviathan that needs the blood of living human beings to grease its gears.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's people on the slave plantation or if it's, selling weapons to soldiers on both sides that kill one another over nothing. And so this is what's happened to our society is that the mercantile civilization has overcome the honor civilization. And I don't think it was an explicit agenda to kill all the red-blooded men in World War I and II. I think it was just a natural result. I mean, the banking system's been overtaking our society for, 400 years? At least 200 years. I mean, the American Rebellion was primarily a rebellion against the bank, the British bank, which of course wasn't owned by Britain. It was owned by, I forget who owned it.
Was it the East India Company?
Not them. But yeah, it was a rebellion against the bank. You got Andy Jackson, his dying words, "I killed the bank." But then the bank took over America, beginning of the 20th century.
It was really before that. I mean, when America sold out its currency to the banksters during the Civil War, that's really where our sovereignty ended.
Oh, isn't that interesting? I'm not a complete expert on American history.
Yeah.
That brother against brother.
Mm-hmm.
Mercantilism is what drives this ugly system. So I don't think there's a 400-year conspiracy to kill all the red-blooded men, to kill all the men with nobility and leadership, and the sort of men that would not have allowed something like feminism to take over.
Right.
I don't think it was a plan, but it's, you know, you do one, you get the other. And we allowed this poison into our civilization. And as a result, you know, I was listening to some Mercantile videos earlier today. And Heidrun, you know, I feel for these guys. Like, some of the stories are just absolutely brutal. You know, the one I was listening to was, the guy was a lawyer. All right, he was a good lawyer. He'd actually managed to get some case law in his state changed. And yet his wife decides to divorce him anyway and just destroy the guy. Destroy him psychologically, alienate his daughters from him, etc. Now, if this guy, 50 years ago, that wouldn't have happened, right? Because you still had alpha men in charge of things. He's not an alpha man, but he is a good beta, right? He's one of the people that build civilization, and we want those people to have wives because if they don't, they stop building civilization for us.
Right.
In the present era, with no alpha men in charge, the problem is it's guys like him in charge, and he does not have the cojones to keep his woman satisfied and keep his family in line.
No, these guys let their women run roughshod over them.
And listen, when you've got the top 20% in charge, that's okay, right? The top 20% will straighten everybody else out. But when that top 20% is gone, then everybody gets run over by this. So, you know, MGTOW is certainly not the solution, okay? Refusing to have children or reproduce is sure as hell not the solution for how we restart our civilization.
Oh, no, it's just a knee-jerk reaction to feminism.
At the same time, I can't really blame them.
No. I mean, now you know why I have very little to do with the other members of my sex.
Well, most men need guidance, but I'd say even more, women need a strong man around.
Mm-hmm.
There's the woman that can be her own rock, be her own anchor, is incredibly exceptional. I would say it's about as exceptional as the sort of man that can turn down sex.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, women especially need that rock, and when they're not tethered, they fly free.
Yeah, well, I mean, the average man or woman is a creature of his or her appetites. I mean, Plato knew this. He wrote about it in the Republic extensively. And that's how you govern a people, is through their emotions, because he grasped this, that the average man or woman is a creature of his appetites.
Well, and they want these appetites to be eternally unfulfilled in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Drew, have you ever seen the movie Fathead?
No.
It's a rejection, a rebuttal of the movie Super Size Me, where this dirty, smelly hippie decides he's going to eat at McDonald's and film a documentary, and oh my God, it almost gave him a heart attack and he got fat. Well, this other guy who's big on the paleo diet decides he's going to do a movie called Fathead, where he eats nothing but fast food and loses weight over a month.
Okay. Was he just eating like meat and cheese and no bread?
The one thing he wasn't doing is he didn't supersize things, and he drank diet soda.
Okay, so he cut the sugar out, most of the sugars, essentially.
Exactly. And his point was that, like, listen, you know, a McDonald's hamburger isn't the healthiest thing in the world, but it's really not that bad.
I mean, it's mostly fat and protein.
Exactly. It's when you get the 32-ounce soda that you get fat.
Right.
And he did some basic workouts, just walking.
Mm-hmm.
And he lost weight on the whole thing. Anyway, where the hell did I bring this guy up? That there was something he said that relates to, oh yes, he was talking about obesity.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, these people that have damaged their
metabolism, or
their which?
Their metabolism?
Yes, they've damaged their metabolism. The thing with fat people is it's not as simple as just stop eating so much. It's because they've so screwed up their system that fat people are actually starving. Yes, their fat cells are chock full of nutrients, but they've so damaged their insulin effect that the fat cells can't release any of that food.
Yeah, they've become insulin resistant. Pretty much the only thing that will reverse that syndrome for somebody like that is a low carb or zero carb diet.
Yeah, and it's going to be painful for them. It's going
Yeah.
to be very painful, and it's going to take a long time.
Yeah, that said, it does work. I mean, I've had some good effects from that, and I know other people who've had some good effects from that, and not just for issues with obesity, but any kind of like autoimmune disorder, people who have gut issues. It's been extraordinarily helpful in healing that.
Oh yeah, like guys, carbs. Some carbs are okay. Don't drink sody pop all the time.
Yeah.
But the way this relates is he has this great quote where he says, people aren't fat because they're hungry because they're fat. It's the fatness that screws up their system so that they are constantly starving because they can't access any of their stored food. And this is what they want. This is what the mercantile system wants. They want you constantly hungry, constantly needing to ingest, even when ingesting is the last thing you need. So, obviously they do this with food. They do it with entertainment as well. We are so desperate for meaningful entertainment, for meaningful stories, and yet all we have is Hollywood pablum. And so we are constantly, this generation is constantly consuming media, watching movies, playing video games, all of this stuff, when the storylines in those are garbage. There is so little catharsis in these stories. And it's that lack of catharsis that makes us want even more, makes us want to binge on Netflix, because we are so hungry for a good story.
Oh yeah, it's all consumption, and that's the reason that a lot of fatherless girls, for example, give themselves away emotionally and sexually to men, because they are starved for the healthy male attention that they would have gotten from a father.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
the more low quality, cheap love they get, the attention instead of the love, the more they crave it, so the more they seek the attention. It's a treadmill where everybody keeps running faster and faster.
Yeah, it's the exact same syndrome, just manifesting itself in different ways, whether it's a eating disorder or emotional disorder, etc. Yeah.
Somebody, I once quipped on Twitter, I think it was, that usury leads to sodomy. And somebody said, what the hell are you talking about? Look at the core mechanism of usury. Now, let me be clear about something. Usury is a very complex topic. Lending money at interest is not innately, not necessarily usury, because money has a time value. Getting paid twice a month is better than getting paid once a month, right? You can invest that money and do something with it.
Hmm.
However, when you lend money at interest, when you create a fractional reserve lending system, what winds up happening in the whole money supply in the economy is you actually wind up with more debt that exists than money. So if you run through, it's a bit of a tedious exercise, but if you run through the effects of, I've got $100 in my bank, that means I can lend out $1,000, right? And you run that cycle, you're going to wind up with, I'm just making up numbers, $11,000 worth of debt, right? So there's been $11,000 lent out to people. There's only $10,000 circulating in the economy.
Oh, that's why they hate it when people pay down their debt. It it screws up their whole racket.
Well, so they keep, now what we used to do with this is we had jubilees every so often where all debt was forgiven. We just hit a reset button on the economy.
Hmm.
Bankruptcy law is supposed to address this, right? Because only 10 out of 11 people will be able to pay off their debts. And this is no moral judgment on you. Right? I mean, like maybe you made bad investments, but maybe you're just the guy still standing when musical chairs is over.
Right.
And so, the guy's still standing. He cashes out his chips. He does bankruptcy, and then boom, back to square one. We have $10,000 of debt and $10,000 of money. Except this is a game of musical chairs. Usury is a game of musical chairs that never ends. We just keep running around in circles, and the chairs are disappearing one by one. So we keep needing to put new chairs in it or destroy things.
Yeah, and it's a zero-sum game too. Like, I mean, once you hit zero, you're done. There's no way to get back into the game.
This is how usury leads to sodomy. This is how eating too much sugar makes you starve. This is how not getting, like inundating yourself with attention deprives you of love. Usury is at the core of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, usury is what sneaky gamma male bankers do, as opposed to the noble alpha Chad of the warrior culture.
I don't know that I consider an alpha and a Chad the same thing at all. Like, to me, an alpha male, I mean, yes, he has the natural genetic superiority to attract women, but he also has other qualities that have to be cultivated and worthed, as we would call it in heathenry. He has to have, leadership. He has to have intelligence that he's actually utilized to build knowledge and practical wisdom. He has to have the emotional intelligence to cultivate relationships, positive relationships with others, so that other men respect him and are loyal to him. So there's a lot more, I think, that goes into an alpha male than just pure genetic superiority. So I don't consider those two the same at all.
You are absolutely correct. Chad is actually Chad is this sad product where so women start off they're disappointed because there's no alpha men in charge, or at least there's not enough alpha men in charge. You need a certain percentage. Like one Conan cannot deal with 100,000 person mob of beta males trying to impose communism.
No.
All right, not even Conan can survive that.
You need many Conans. You need a ring of kings and their trusted companions to work together to solve those problems.
Precisely. You need a certain percentage of alpha men. I mean, like, Ronald Reagan might be a great example of this. He is a complete failure as a president, even though, I never knew the guy, obviously, but he strikes me as an alpha sort of a guy that was surrounded with beta male sneaks. So best of intentions, accomplished nothing.
Yeah, a lot of those guys that you describe as Chad, I think, are just effeminate.
They literally are. It's
Yeah.
It's an addiction to pleasure. That's what effeminacy means in the theological sense, that you're addicted to pleasure.
Yeah, exactly. All it is just some good genetics. They look good. They've got the V taper to their frame, to their body and so forth. But that's it. That's all they've gotten. I mean, they haven't earned anything. An alpha male has great genetics, but he's also achieved great things. So
Well, this is the funny thing, is that when you get these alpha males in charge, they tend to pacify, not pacify, that's the wrong word, they stabilize society, which means there are less women available for them. And so right now, because there aren't enough alphas to control society, the people that do have alpha qualities have women thrown at them constantly. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these guys that should be leaders of men are instead completely distracted by the endless revolving door of pussy coming into their apartments.
Yeah. And I imagine, I mean, I'm not a man, but I imagine that it's got to be hard to say no to that, no matter how disciplined you are. So how can you be focused on building anything when you're constantly distracted by that?
Yeah. And believe me, I know a lot of guys like this, that, I can't, if I tell them to stop, it sounds like a really negative thing, right? It's like I'd like to see them focusing on better things. Like,
Yeah.
buddy, but if you want a mistress, fine. All right, but get a wife first. Put some babies in her. All right, we need more alpha babies.
Yeah.
Go. You have your mistress, and of course his wife will put up with it.
Of course. Well, if
He might even do it altogether.
yeah, I mean, I know I'm going to catch flack for it, but I'll just come out and say it. I mean, a good woman will be accepting of that. She will understand. She will also understand that it doesn't threaten her interests.
The main thing is don't make a fool of her.
Right.
It's when you make a fool of a woman that you hurt her. Women don't like to have the same sort of sexual jealousy that men have.
Well, and for good reason, right? Because a man's interests are threatened by by another man having sex with his woman, but a woman's interests are not threatened by another woman having sex with her man. It's when a man falls in love with and is economically investing in another woman that her interests then become threatened. So women are always cautious of the other woman who's trying to take her man away and get him to economically and emotionally invest in her, whereas the man feels threatened when there's other men looking to bed his woman.
Leo the Great sends a $5 US super chat and asks what my favorite saint is and my favorite channels on YouTube. Probably Saint Joan of Arc, honestly. I mean, she was awesome. The Maid of Orleans, however you pronounce that.
Like I said, I know I was going to catch some flack for that, and I see somebody saying, "Yeah, she'll understand." Look, most women have come up in this society where they've been taught that they are entitled to exclusivity, and they've also been allowed to indulge their greed. So, of course, they're going to throw up a fuss. It takes a woman who has done some self work and has some self knowledge and understands natural law and evolutionary psychology and accepts all these things and is willing to work within that system for the best interests not only of herself and her family but also society as a whole. That's an extraordinary woman. I'm not going to try to suggest that there's a ton of them out there, but if she is that, then she will be accepting of it.
Well, I think, guys, what you need to... I'm not promoting that you cheat on your wife. I don't have a huge issue if you have two women and you support both of them and their children. Don't have a huge issue with that. I'm not encouraging this, but why do the women reject it? And the reason is not because you're making a fool of them. It's not because it's wounding them emotionally. It's because most of the time, it's because they're greedy. And if she's greedy, she's also going to be greedy about the fact that you're volunteering for, I don't know, the local Shriners League, right? She won't want you to do that. These are the sort of women that after you give them two kids, start pushing you to have a vasectomy, right? Not for her sake. She wants to have a vasectomy so that you can't get other women pregnant, so that she can divorce you and she now has your only children held hostage. Okay, there's a greedy motive behind it. It's not a good motive. Not saying you should cheat on your wife, but most of the time when a woman doesn't want a man to have a mistress, there are greedy motivations behind it.
Yeah, that's a keen observation. I didn't even think of that. You must have came up with that one on your own. But yeah, and you also have to understand that oftentimes women are not conscious of their motives. So even though she may be sort of setting a man up for this type of situation, and she may be doing it intentionally, she may also be doing it unconsciously. She's not aware that she's doing it. And that may
the sex that greatly benefits from not knowing their own motives. It gives them plausible deniability.
And just to wrap up what I was going to say, this lack of consciousness, this unawareness, can make a woman seem completely innocent to the guy because he will find no lie in her eyes because she's not aware of what she's doing.
Exactly. That's why women, I swear to God, women have develop the ability to lie to themselves extremely well. Now, when things hit the bricks, they stop lying to themselves immediately. They immediately become creatures of practicality.
Oh yeah. And guys, this is why I would strongly encourage you to have a wise, keen-sighted woman close to you in your life, like as a friend, and let her check out all your girlfriends. Let her check out anybody who you are considering marrying, because she will see things. I guarantee it. She will see motive where you may not, because you'll be blind to it. But she'll see it and she'll point it out, and she may save you, an absolute disaster if you listen to her.
And you know what? You also, listen, as a man, you can't, when she points something out, look for it. Don't trust her blindly. Because it's equally as possible that you could have met a psycho and she's just trying to make you miserable by destroying a good relationship. But if she points something out, look for it. You need to prove it to yourself. You're the one responsible for this. All right? If somebody gives you advice, you have to test this advice for yourself. You don't follow their advice, then blame them when it doesn't work out.
Oh, there's that echo.
Of course. Go ahead.
And the same thing in reverse too. So for the ladies, make sure you've got a guy in your life who you really trust, who's a good friend, who can point out which you might not see in the guys you're dating, or a guy you're considering maybe becoming sexual with. He'll be able to point out behaviors that you may not be aware of. So it's just good to have that.
I started a new thing for Patreon backers called the workshop. And the one I did was talk about how you should test the men you know. And I need to amend part of that, because I said, like, one of the 5 points that you should test these men. Can I trust these men? Can I trust them in a pinch? Can I trust their advice? One of them was, can they get laid? Because a guy that can't get laid will betray you at the drop of a hat for pussy. All right?
Mm-hmm. So true.
Asking a guy who can't get laid to stick with you rather than sniff after the tot is like asking a woman to side with you over her children. All right? That's his genetic legacy. Right. This guy can't get laid, okay? One girl, squirted pheromones at him. He's going to be all over that. This is his only chance to ever breed.
Right.
Of course he's going to betray you. But, there's a second part of this that I didn't even think of until now, that if he can get laid, he also needs the self-discipline to say no at times.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tell you what, a lot of these alpha Chad types, a lot of them wind up getting trapped in very unhealthy marriages. Or maybe not even unhealthy, but just the wrong marriage. Because they couldn't say no to the pussy. It's like, yes, they can get pussy. And these guys often cheat on their wife and get in trouble for it. Because they have no self-control. You need to be able to get laid. You need to be red pill. You need to be a little bit Chadly. You also need to be able to turn it off when it's the right time to turn it off. Otherwise, you get... Oh, God, and I don't want to call him Chad, but you get... good Lord, who's that alt-right guy? Not David Duke. The Tiki Torch idiot.
Spencer?
Spencer, thank you. Mm-hmm. People were going to say I was just pretending not to remember his name. I just don't care about him that much. But you get Richard Spencer, fucking one of his lieutenant's girlfriends. That's what happens when you have a man with no self-control.
Oh, so, yeah. And that's beta behavior. That's effeminate.
And that guy is going to, if you ask him for advice on your woman, is going to tell you to cheat on her. And he's going to tell you to suck up to her. He's going to tell you to suck up to her and cheat on her at the same time.
That's ridiculous. That is utterly ridiculous.
I have experienced it. Good Lord, we have so little virtue in our society these days.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if people are going to be in a relationship with one another, they owe each other truthfulness, and communication. I mean, if people want to have a relationship outside of their primary relationship, that can be okay. I'm not saying it is okay for everybody, but it can be okay, so long as it is communicated honestly and there's respect and consensus and everybody's interests are being looked out for, including any children who may be in the mix. These are the sorts of things that people have to be mindful of.
There's an article I tweeted out earlier today. I was thinking about sending it to you, Heidrun, but it's a very long article, and I know you're busy.
Mm-hmm.
I tweeted out the article saying if more Protestants thought like this, I could have a lot more Protestant friends, brothers, and allies. And it was an article discussing some of the things Paul said. But one of the core premises of Christianity is that the law no longer applies. You are free. And I thought you'd really appreciate this, Heidrun. So I know one of the issues you take with Christianity is the excessive legality that you get in some places.
Yes. Well, I'm not a fan of the written law in anywhere, any expression of it.
Well, the point of this article, and now this was coming from a Protestant, and he was saying, like, listen, you don't need to go to church. You don't need the ritual. The law doesn't apply anymore. However, that doesn't mean that you go out and do whatever you feel like. Okay?
Right.
Antinomianism is the name of that heresy. Oh, there's no law? Then I can have sex orgies. And this guy points out, and this was beautiful. I am so happy to hear that some Protestants can acknowledge this. He pointed out that Martin Luther was pointing out the excessive legalism and hypocrisy of the Catholic Church. And then people took what Martin Luther said, and tons of evil resulted from it. Just because you don't need training wheels on the bike doesn't mean that you're laying on the grass and calling yourself an expert biker.
Well, this is what happens when you have written law. Language that is written can then be twisted and manipulated and inverted, and that is so often what is done. That's why we have legislation in modern governments. We used to have something called customary law, which in Old English was called thew. And back in the day, before the Roman Church came in and replaced everything with statutory law, if a king or a lord or chieftain had a dispute that was brought before him, it was his task to find the law both in nature and in thew. And this is how truth was found. This was how rulings were made. There was no written law.
Well, I think there's an argument for common law.
Well, common law is customary law. It is thew.
But it does get written down.
I mean, it can be, but I don't think it needs to be.
It's good to have predictive law that you know what the ruling is going to be beforehand. But listen, this is getting off topic. The point I was trying to make with this was that the core premise of Christianity is not that you need to follow 693 rules, otherwise you're going to burn in hell in all eternity. The point is you are free. Like, the law is there. It's the training wheels on the bike. It's there to keep your bike, mobile. But if you know how to bike, you can take the training wheels off. And in fact, if you're a really good biker, you can even lean your bike down at a 30-degree angle when you're doing a really fast turn and get back up again. But here's the thing, is if you don't have the training wheels, you need to take responsibility. You are free to do whatever you want if you take responsibility for it.
Well, that was what separated. Oh, there's that echo. That's what separated the nobles from the commoners. Elizabeth I was even quoted as saying that the law is for common men, not for princes. Now, I know she said that in a moment of anger, but it's a true statement in the sense that the common man, again, being a creature of his appetites, as the early Greek philosophers observed, had to be governed. Whereas the nobleman who had cultivated virtue within himself did not need to be governed because he was self-governed.
Exactly. And what they are doing right now, and another super chat from Leo the Great. Thank you, brother. Relationships are cyclical. Be the aloof alpha Chad when she's not on the period, and then be the sweetheart when she's on the rag.
Hey, there's something to that. There's been studies done on the female cycle and preferences in women depending on where they are in their cycle.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, if you want to whine about something, just wait 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's when you show vulnerability.
Yeah, they've done tests with like women looking at men's faces during different cycles and what features they prefer, and also I think they smelled men's T-shirts after they'd worn them, and the men who had more testosterone were more attractive to women during their ovulation phase, as opposed to when they were not on their ovulation phase. So, yeah, there is some science behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the reverse happens with birth control pills, where birth control puts women into a faux pregnancy. And during pregnancy, women are intimidated by alpha guys because the alpha guy might leave them. They want the beta guy that sticks around. So you get these couples, they get married, she goes off the pill, and she is suddenly sexually disgusted by her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, science.
Yeah, I have seen that happen more than a few times. That is a sad and disastrous event when that occurs. And of course, the guy doesn't know what happened. He doesn't understand. He'll say, "Where's the woman I married? I don't understand this." It's like, dude, she was on the pill.
Well, same thing happens to her. She doesn't understand it. And she's probably going to think that it's something wrong with her health, or she's stressed out from work, or you don't take me on dates anymore, or no, that's not it. It's the hormones, honey.
Yeah, I don't understand how people can be that naive as to think that they can alter their body chemistry and that it's going to have no effect on their brain.
Well, again, people don't take responsibility. You're free to do anything you can, but you got to take responsibility for it.
That's right.
This is the problem with guys that cheat on their wives, and they're not taking responsibility for it. They're not being honest. They're being sneaky.
Yeah, they don't want to have the tough conversation with their partner to either communicate their dissatisfaction with something in the relationship and perhaps work that out with their partner, or if it's something that they know they can't work out, to ask for release from the marriage contract to have this extramarital relationship. They just don't want to deal with the difficult conversation.
I swear, I think about 90% of people cheat on their partner before breaking up with them.
Oh yeah, it's cowardly, it's disrespectful, it's incredibly insulting to the other person. If you enter into a troth with somebody, and part of that consists of emotional and sexual exclusivity, well, then you owe that person your honesty before you step out on that, right? I mean, you're free to step out on it, but you have to communicate, hey, I'm breaking the contract, so that other person is informed and can make appropriate choices.
Exactly. That's one thing I haven't done. If I'm going to leave a woman for somebody else, I leave her first.
Good on you.
It's just sneaky. I don't like sneaky behavior. And again, guys, if you lie, if you're being sneaky, if you get what you pay for, right? If you get a woman by telling lies, well, you didn't get the woman, the lies got the woman. Now you got to pretend to be that lie for the rest of your life. Good luck.
Right. Same's true for women. The girls who are out there lying and cheating, that shit comes back on you too.
Even the women that are being greedy.
Mm-hmm.
Women, don't try and capture a man that you can't house. Don't get a giant dog if you live in a bachelor apartment. Don't try and capture an alpha man so you can tie him down and force him to buy a house for you.
Right. Yeah, I've seen this a lot with musicians because I'm a musician, and you've got the girl who's attracted to the rock star, right? He may be the lead singer or the lead guitar player, but he's one of the guys who's out front. He's got a lot of charisma, he's got a lot of energy, and usually a lot of talent, right? And so he's the alpha. And she wants to bag the alpha. Every girl does, right? So as soon as she bags him, what happens? Well, now she doesn't want him to play in the band anymore. Now he's got to quit everything, and he's got to stay home, and he's got his chores to do, and before you know it, he's playing guitar, maybe once a week as a hobby, and he's not pursuing his dream anymore. And she ends up despising him after that because she's now reduced him to something that's just a shell of the light that she fell in love with in the first place.
Yeah, she destroyed it. It's like, listen, the alpha can be faithful. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying all of them will be, but he can be. But if you try and put him into a cage, you're just destroying him.
Yeah.
These people. To go back to the emotionalism. Okay, like that. This is the mercantile civilization doesn't want nobility. It wants emotionality. It wants people to constantly be on this treadmill, needing more and more. We're about to talk about some of this insanity, but they want people, they want you emotional so that you're not reasoning and you're not thinking.
Yeah, just like a drug addict. If you're constantly chasing after your next high because you're addicted, you're never going to be able to stop long enough to realize what you're doing and make a different choice. And everybody's addicted in this society. I had mentioned that on John Steele's stream.
I think you mentioned it here before, but tell them again because it's brilliant. I completely agree with this.
I might have mentioned it here. I know I've mentioned it on a couple of streams. He had asked me to war game, the next 5 years out. What do I see? And I said, well, I see society as being in the throes of addiction. It's behaving like an addict. And yeah, I mean, an addict is basically enslaved to their appetites. Whether it's an appetite for drugs or sex or alcohol or gambling or food or attention, whatever it may be.
You know what? Look at these Dubai porta potties. All right. The Dubai porta potty isn't doing those foul things for the money. She's doing it. She's not doing it so she has enough money to buy a Lamborghini. She's doing it so she can buy the Lamborghini and then take a picture of herself for Instagram with the Lamborghini in the background.
Yeah,
or the Coachella women that spend $20,000 on an outfit and new tits to go to a music festival. They're not there for the music. They're there for the pictures.
Yeah, these are people who are addicted to attention. And particularly in today's society, I think women are ridiculously addicted to attention. I mean, they're narcissistic and vain in a way that we have never seen before. And now men too are following suit. I mean, I'm seeing men behave as vainly and narcissistically as women.
Fight Club called it. That scene on the bus where Tyler points at the Calvin Klein ad and says, "Is that what a man looks like?" You got these, like, listen, I work out, but you got these guys that go to the gym that worship their bodies. And then Common Filth talked about this back in the day, how a lot of these bodybuilders, they wind up doing gay for pay. A lot of them. Because it's, you would think that you're getting buff so you can get laid with women. These guys are getting buff to self-worship. And again, usury leads to sodomy.
Yeah.
So on to this. There's an article that let me give the guy credit that they tossed it up on my Discord. It was giant faggot barbecue. I never actually read his name before, but he tossed up this article, and it is titled. Let me just find it here. Academic activists send a published paper down the memory hole. Now, listen, guys, we were talking last week about how Rushdie had his books pulled off of Amazon. And, you know, I'm not even going to indulge in any of this. It's a private company. Like, fuck off. His books were taken down off of Amazon because they were popular and because Roosh's books are advocating for traditional masculinity. All right? They're helping guys be self-sustaining men. They're teaching men not to be thirsty. And the system doesn't want that. They want everyone thirsty. But it's worse than just this. Oh, and by the way, quick shout out for Roosh. His entire collection of books is available in ebook format for, I believe, $35 right now. The sale ends today, so go check that out if you're interested. That's a lot of books for $35. It's a good deal.
And now, while you guys are parting with your money, how about some super chats here for Aurini? He's doing some hard work for you. You do a lot of research for these folks.
I try to. And by the way, if you care about Heidrun's shekelraz, there is a link to her PayPal. She's still setting up her website, still getting the whole Free Folk Radio thing organized, but you can always help out if you appreciate her whiskey, smoky voice, tantalizing your ears on these live streams.
Ooh, thank you for that plug, Aurini.
Now, back to this article. So, like, listen, Roosh, he said a rude word once about women, so of course the SJWs hate him. This article is about how a mathematical model got memory hold from published journals in a completely unprecedented, like, this is Stalin photoshopping people out of pictures before Photoshop existed. So the paper in question was developed for the greater male variability hypothesis. Now, I think you guys have heard of this already, but this is the observation that when it comes to the males of a species, the more sexually dimorphic the species is, the more that you find that the males wind up skewing into more Nobels as well as more dumbbells. You know, glass ceiling, dirt floor. More male CEOs, more male janitors, etc. Mm-hmm. And in fact, now this is really interesting. I was reading this article. Did you know that Darwin noticed this?
Oh, yeah. Jordan Peterson. Oh, there's that echo. Jordan Peterson mentioned this in a couple of his lectures as well, his class lectures at
I swear, we're just getting Giudolini poured all over us tonight, aren't we?
We are. Ghost in the machine.
Oh, yeah, this is a well-established fact of biology. Okay, but what really blew me away is that this, you find out stuff is even older than you realize. Like, I thought this was something they noticed over the past 40 or 50 years. No, Darwin wrote about the greater male variability because men are the experimental sex. Sperm is cheap, eggs are precious. Mm-hmm. Now, the issue with this is that even though we've observed it, and the reasoning for it is self-evident, we didn't have a mathematical model describing it, right? And I mean, there is quite a bit of science to be done proving stuff we already know, right? I'll give you an interesting example of one of the things that we didn't understand. We used to think that when birds were flocking, that there was a group mind or a group soul controlling the birds, because they flock like one unit. It's absolutely striking how they move.
Oh, yeah.
But it turns out, and I was reading this a few years back, somebody developed a mathematical model where a whole bunch of independent agents using very little processing power can organize to flock. And it just comes innately. You don't need a group mind. You don't even need a lot of thought devoted to it. It's very easy for animals to flock. And in fact, if you ever watch footage of people driving in the third world, very few accidents given that there's no traffic laws whatsoever. It's kind of beautiful, actually, watching these flocks of motorcycles and buses and no traffic control, and yet they all make it through the intersection. That said, you do get hundreds of deaths every year. But it's amazing that you don't get more. So we never had a model for this. This guy, Theodore Hill, develops a model that proves it, or it demonstrates how it would work in a mathematical sense. So that this is wonderful, and people that saw this like, oh, this is amazing. We've had this question's been sitting on the shelf for a century and a half, and you just answered it. This is freaking amazing. You need to publish this. And so he's all set up to publish. It's a very long story. I'm not going to go through all the details, all the names. Basically, one woman that runs a women's mathematical organization, she decides that this mathematical theorem is going to hurt women's feelings, and then women might not want to get into math. And so she enlists her father, because of course, like, women never attack themselves. They get some other guy to attack. They get the father, and the father writes the journal, and they completely destroy. He finally gets it published 3 years later after removing other guys' names off of it because they don't want the harassment. And it gets published, and then a week later, it's gone. It's not retracted, it's just gone. That doesn't happen. Okay? It's one thing to go back to the Stalin metaphor. It's one thing to fire one of your lieutenants because he misbehaved. It's a whole other thing to pretend he never frickin' existed in the first place. And there's a reason that Stalin memory hold people. Okay, when you fire somebody, you need to give a reason. If you are going to rebut this article, you'd have to actually rebut it. And the thing is, everybody attacking this article knew it was true. So instead of attacking it, instead of rebutting it, they memory hold it.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, this is the level of insanity that we are dealing with from these people. Like, this is beyond emotional. This is a complete lack of rational thought.
Oh yeah, they're trying to eliminate all dissenters. It's the only way that they can win.
It's stunning, isn't it? It's absolutely. And again, this is the chair of a mathematical department attacking a mathematical theorem because it could hypothetically hurt somebody's feelings.
I mean, these people believe their crazy ideology to such an extent that they think they can actually invert nature, that they can actually destroy the design itself and somehow have a society, have an existence for that matter.
You know, not just nature, their own damn discipline. This woman has dedicated her life to studying mathematics, and suddenly she is destroying mathematics for the sake of an ideology that has nothing to do with math.
Yeah, for the sake of her emotions, ultimately, for the sake of feel-good emotions, so that she can go on believing in the fantasy that all women can go into STEM fields because mathematical intelligence is no barrier to that.
It's equally distributed between the sexes and the population. Everybody could become an advanced mathematician.
Right. If they just work hard enough, sure. IQ has nothing to do with it. The natural preferences of men and women have nothing to do with it. Of course.
You know, and here's what really blew me away with this article, though. The last paragraphs, the author puts a break in it, and then he writes, over the years, there has undoubtedly been significant bias and discrimination against women in mathematics and technical fields. Unfortunately, some of that still persists, even though many of us have tried hard to help turn the tide. My own efforts have included tutoring and mentoring female undergraduates, graduating female PhD students, and supporting hiring directives from deans and department chairs to seek out and give special consideration to female candidates.
Oh, there was the words there, to give, right?
Give.
Yes.
Empowerment. M comes from outside.
Right. Not affording them an opportunity to earn it for themselves on their merits, but to bequeath it to them.
You know, we had a saying back in the Army, move like you want to be here. Do you want to be here? Because if you don't want to be here, here's an application to McDonald's and the door. We've got zero time for lazy, unmotivated troops in the army. Why the hell is he bending over backwards for female students? Like, listen, you know, when you pay a teacher, when you pay your tuition, you're paying to learn something. Yeah, the teacher has a job, right? That's his job now, to teach you. But guess what? If the guy teaching you is any good whatsoever, he could be making money in industry, right? He is actually doing you a great service. He has no obligation to teach you. And teaching is such an emotional thing, okay? Like, you're really building a bond with somebody. You're working so hard to explain stuff to other people. That teacher deserves your respect. It is not the teacher's job to bend over backwards and suck up to you and bake you a fucking cake. No, you respect that teacher. Do you want to be here? If not, get the hell out. Oh, I saw this study that said women aren't good at math. I don't know if I'm comfortable. Get the hell out. You have absolutely no right to be taught anything. You should be thanking him every single day for spending his time bothering to teach your dumbass how to be a real human being. You do not deserve this. Okay? Even though you paid, you don't deserve this. You got to earn it every single day. You know, paying a teacher doesn't mean you get all A's. You got to earn it by working your ass off. It's not the teacher's business to make you comfortable. It's your business to overcome.
Got a couple of super chats.
Yes, let's get those. VRL Journey sends $5 and says, and how normies even know this happened.
How many normies?
Oh, how many normies even know this happened? Oh boy. Well, we'll get to that in a second. Leo the Great sends another $5. Thanks, brother. Do you believe Vigano's letter is true? Would you interview the distributist? I'm sure you would get lots of shekels for that. You know, let me get to your question in just a little bit. I want to finish up this topic first. So how many normies even know this happened? How many normies even care? Okay, they're too busy, I don't know, pizza and sports ball?
Yeah.
What really blows me away about this is the guy it happened to hasn't even learned his lesson. He is still saying we need to bend over backwards to get more women into the STEM fields. No, we fucking don't. We don't need to bend over backwards to get anybody into the STEM fields. In fact, bending over backwards to get people into the STEM fields is how you wind up with bridges that collapse and infrastructures that fall apart. You know, if you can't find anybody motivated enough to become an engineer, to become a soldier, well, maybe we don't need any more soldiers then.
Right.
But no, this guy is he's still serving the ideology that just ate him alive.
It's crazy.
Absolutely mind-blowing. Like, this is that boomer cuck mentality. You know, you get people that have been divorced or their friends have been divorced, and then they still support the whole rigmarole of divorce law and domestic violence, all of this. They still buy into all of this because, like, Lord save them from ever taking responsibility or thinking for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all right, Leo the Great, he was asking about Vigano's letter. I'll be honest, I haven't been following it that closely. Vigano's letter is a bishop, I believe, who has written a letter claiming that there's a lavender mafia in the Catholic Church. And yeah, there absolutely is. The Catholic Church has been targeted specifically. You know, all Christians, all organizations have. I mean, heathenry's been targeted.
Oh, yeah.
I think the biggest push was to get into the Catholic Church, and that started, decades back. Half a century back is when the commies really started pushing their way into the Catholic Church. But yeah, at the highest levels, it is pure corruption. I don't know all the details because, let me put it this way, brother. My calling is not to clear out my calling is not to fix the church. That's not what I'm here to do. All right, my mission is to try and develop masculinity in our people, to try and reinvigorate what made Europe great. That's what I'm here to do. And I would be very happy if the church, there are people that have the mission to fix the church. The guys at Church Militant, great freaking job. Laramie Hirsch, okay? Forgeandanvil.com, there's some dashes in between there. I tweet him out every so often. Guys, go follow Laramie Hirsch. He is doing great work in his local community and in the wider Catholic community. It's not my calling. So I haven't been following it that closely, but you know, I see absolutely no reason to doubt anything Vigano says.
You know, and we're really grateful to have men like you who are doing this work.
Oh, hell. It's good to have support. It's good to have a lady that carries a lamp and a mirror.
Thank you.
So, oh, good Lord. Like, it still blows me away just how blind to reason these people are, how thoroughly they have ejected reason. You know, Kyle Trouble got into, he had an SJ mob turn on him for daring to have standards about women, right? Like, I won't date a woman that has tattoos, for instance. You post that on Twitter, and for some reason, these animals start freaking out. And next thing you know, you got a mob of 10,000 idiots that are sending you endless bullshit on Twitter. And what really, like, the crazy part is, though, the woman that says it's unacceptable for men to have standards then says Kyle Trouble doesn't meet her standards.
Of course.
It's
yeah, no perspective at all.
Like, hey, ladies, if I don't meet your standards, that's absolutely fine. You're allowed to have standards out there. Sorry, I'm not dating any tatted up single moms with nose piercings. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say that. That might get me fired from my job. Christ. I don't want to date a tatted up single mom with nose piercings. Fire that man! Heretic!
That's okay. I don't want to work with anybody who looks like that.
Oh, that's prejudice. Don't you know that somebody that's transitioning between the sexes and has lots of facial piercings and a upside down pentagram on their forehead can make a perfectly fine hamburger for you?
I don't even like having to go out to the store or run errands and see that stuff in my neighborhood.
Oh, good. Yeah, it just makes me sad. I mean, like, you know, you can look at these people and it's like, good Lord, buddy, you've got such a life of misery ahead of you.
Oh yeah, and a lot of people, they do this stuff when they're young, right? They're in their 20s when they start maiming their bodies in various ways. Do they ever think to the future about how that's going to look when they're 40 or 60?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to have a wrinkled up tattoo on your shoulder when you're 60 years old.
Yeah.
It's another thing to have nothing but wrinkled up tattoos all over your body and two tits that don't sag that you can put your Depends on.
Yeah, the women who get their chests tattooed, boy, they really have something special to look forward to.
Mr. Man says, I bet Boudica had tattoos. Yeah, she probably did, but they weren't trashy, meaningless, attention-getting tattoos. They had some significance for her.
Yes. Well, back in those days, you know, tattoos did have a sacral or tribal significance. And there are still some cultures where that's done. You know, Muay Thai fighters have tattoos, have themselves tattooed by Buddhist monks, you know.
Yeah, and again, if somebody's in a military unit, they get a tattoo. Like, I'm not a fan of tattoos. I don't have any. But if they get a meaningful tattoo, the thing is, your average person hasn't done anything meaningful, and they're never going to do anything meaningful. They're just trying to pretend there's meaning in their life.
Right.
You know, I've said before, I swear to God, there's people out there that the only reason they have a job, or they have no purpose. So the only way they can motivate themselves to go to work is to get a mortgage. And the moment they pay off that mortgage, they go and buy a bigger house. Because if they paid off their mortgage and retired, they would have to face the abyss of meaning that is their life.
Right. They're not sustained within, so they have to seek something outside of themselves in order to sustain them. And something I was going to say about the tattoos, people who get tattoos, for whom it doesn't have some kind of deep spiritual meaning, like some of the examples that we gave, it's a form of LARPing, in my opinion.
They're LARPing at having had meaningful experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my grandmother died, so I got this tattoo of whatever bullshit was on an anime.
Right.
Doesn't mean shit. Everybody has a grandmother die. You're trying to find meaning in your life. It has no meaning. This actually perfectly segues into the other link I have down below about this new meme that's gaining popularity. I don't even NPCs. It's this new meme going around that there's a lot of people are NPCs, non-player characters. And, before we dive into this, I got to say right off the bat that I'm pretty sure about 90% of the people talking about how other people are NPCs are absolutely ideologically possessed and mentally enslaved narcissists who think they're in a fucking movie or a video game. So it's a kind of thing I'm very hesitant to even use this, because 90% of the people talking about this, I once stumbled upon a conversation where a guy was saying, I really feel like my whole life is actually a movie and I'm the main character.
Of course.
Yeah, that's how it works, buddy. You're the fucking main character. Go buy more shitty beer and engage in more sodomy. That's a movie, all right. It's like Train Spotting without any drama. Okay, where was I? Okay, that said, on Rush's stream today, he had a really interesting observation. He was talking about the inner monologue. And, it's funny. There's so many of these things. Some people think visually and others don't. Right? And now I think visually. I remember things visually. And there's people out there that don't. I have no idea how they remember things if they don't remember things visually. Like, how can you remember something without seeing a picture in your mind?
Right.
But those people that don't remember visually, they think an image in your mind, they think that's a metaphor, right? Until they find out there's like, no, I really do see pictures in my mind. Lots of it. There's people that dream in black and white. That's really weird.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a thing. Actually, one of the weird things about me is I actually remember things from a isometric perspective. I don't remember things through my own eyes. I actually remember them from a camera that's slightly out of frame, which is really weird. Probably played too many RPGs as a kid, but that's just how I remember things. Anyway, what Rush was talking about specifically was the inner monologue. And actually, before I get to that, Viral Journey sends $5. Man, it's always the same names. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it, guys. Viral Journey says, these people just consume one identity after another. End stage capitalism isn't a thing, right, libertarians? Side tangent. The people that are Ayn Rand devotees are the first ones to tear down anybody better than them. You want to know why the Libertarian Party fails? Is because libertarians will unite against anybody with actual genius, talent, ability, or ambition. People that read Ayn Rand are the looters and moochers she's talking about. It's the poor Ayn Rand. It's like Nietzsche getting, read by nihilists. Like, the guy wasn't a nihilist.
Right. He was warning about nihilism.
Yes, he hates you. He hates the fans of his own work.
Right.
Oh, there's an ironic curse for you. All right, back to the inner monologue. So Rush was talking to a girl, and the inner monologue just came up, and she commented that she only once in a while has an inner monologue. And he's like, wait, are you serious? Because mine never stops. I have to drink 2 beers just to shut it up for an hour. It's like, silence for a little bit. But
Right.
the rest of the time, it's just my brain. And Rouge was saying the same goes for me, and same goes for you, Heidrun. It's like just thinking.
Yeah, I think I said mine's on automatic.
It doesn't, like, the only time mine stops is when I'm just dead tired. When I've worked physically and worked mentally, and it's just the end of the day, and I've got nothing left whatsoever. That's the only time my brain shuts up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as I think I said to you, my hunch is that it has something to do with IQ, because it seems that people, far to the right of the curve, regardless of what sex they are, all seem to have this inner monologue.
Mr. Man sends $2 and says, "Buy yourself a coaster and stop banging the table."
That's part of the atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly, guys. This ain't a professional show.
This is part of Aurini's brand. Right?
I've been wondering if I should start getting some visuals going again now that Luke's not here. But yeah, I actually kind of prefer my videos not being that polished, right? Like my regular videos, just me sitting and talking. It's not 101 animations and moving pictures and all this other crap. And I know that costs me audience, but I think, I don't know. I'm not a journalist, okay? Black Pigeon Speaks. You know what? You're asking about my favorite YouTube channels. Black Pigeon Speaks. He is a great YouTuber, okay? And he does these great videos. I love his stuff. He's a journalist. I'm not. That's not what I'm here to do. I know I could reach more people if I spent all this time in the editing booth making things look really pretty. That's not what I'm here to do.
See, that's what's great about you. I mean, your show, whether it's the live stream or whether it's your pre-recorded videos, it's very organic, it's very raw, it's very tactile. You don't need to polish it up. You speak your truth, and I think I've said this before. It was one of the things that attracted me to your show in the first place, is you just speak your truth plainly.
There's not enough of that out there. There's not enough of the organic.
Yeah.
There. Tom Bombadil comments, Aurini influences influencers. I tend to think you're right about that, actually. I don't want to overstate it, but yeah, I reach the people that matter. Don't reach a huge audience, but I reach the ones that matter.
It's called the Kundalini. The Kundalini energy.
I reach the people that have an inner monologue going on.
That's right.
You see these people jumping from one thing to another. And he sends a super chat. Thank you, Bombadil. You see these people jumping from one thing to another that are just constantly. And the video I linked down below. I haven't seen the guy before. It was one of you. I should give some credit. Sent it to me on Twitter. Was InfoWarrior sent it to me on Twitter. I don't know who this guy is, but he was commenting that this weekend he just, even though the economy sucks and nobody has money, somehow all these people have money to go spend money at the mall constantly. And like, shit, this guy's right. It's these people, I don't know where the hell they get the money from. These obese automatons just walking into the store and they're walking out and they're going to see a movie and then they're going to the fast food place, and it just never ends. They are always consuming.
Yeah.
They never stop for 5 minutes and just be quiet.
Or create something, actually contribute something to their culture.
Consume. I don't know where the hell they get the money from.
Yeah.
And it gets, maybe they are NPCs. Generated. All right, explain something to me. How is it that at every Walmart I've ever been to, there's Walmart people?
Yes.
I leave the Walmart, there's no Walmart people. I go into it, they're everywhere. It really is like I've walked into, it's like, oh, this set of character models is now being generated. I don't know, it's like, do they just hang out at Walmart all day?
Well, some look like they do. I always tell people, like, if you're really depressed and you're having a bad day, just go to Walmart and you will see things there that will make you realize that your life is not so bad.
I don't know. Maybe you'll look at the people that share your society with you and vote and decide it's time to off yourself. This is why I can't find a coffee maker that lasts for more than 3 months.
You know what? I didn't think of it that way. That's a good point.
Amused outsider comments, the Wall Martians invasion. You know, I'm a strong believer that everybody's born with a soul, but some people erode it bit by bit until there's nothing left in there.
Yeah. They cease to be human at some point. I think. I think they lose their humanity at some point.
You know, there's this, like the Bible says, if you want to live forever, live without sin. And one of the things I've found, like I don't know if that's strictly true, but I've found that people that keep a clean soul live a lot, they look a lot better. They age far more gracefully than your average person of Walmart.
You know, that's a good point. Yeah, honest people, they tend to appear more youthful and more just energized.
You know, and it's not an issue of drinking, smoking, eating. You know, there's one lady I know who she loves cooking for people. Like if you go over to her place, there's going to be all of this food she's made, right? Good food too. And guess what? She's fat. But she has this aura to her that even though she's fat, she looks good.
Well, probably because she's doing what she loves. I mean, if she cooks that much and the food is good, she obviously has a passion for food, and that's a case where it may be something more than appetite, right? I mean, obviously, if she's obese, then there's an appetite there, but she probably has a genuine.
She's big the way that Santa Claus is big.
Okay, well then she literally loves food. She has a passion for food in the same way that a musician might have passion for his violin, or uh, a writer has passion for writing.
Or how you and I have so many weapons in our homes.
That's true. There's a lot of steel hanging on my walls.
But yeah, it's like, yeah, she probably eats too much, but she's eating not out of self-loathing, not out of, she's eating because she loves food, she loves cooking, she loves hosting people, all of that.
Right. She's probably not using the food as a drug to have some kind of escape. She's yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Man says she's Rosie the Hobbit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good analogy because, you know, hobbits are, of course, plump, but they have a genuine love for earthy things, including food.
They're based, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know, the NPC thing can really get out of control depending on who's talking about it, but it seems like these people, they've just silenced the voice inside, right? Because the voice, the inner monologue was saying things they didn't like. And instead of finding a way to address that, you know, Doug Stanhope actually had a great bit about this, and I absolutely adore Stanhope. You know, you might think I don't because he is such a virulent atheist, right? But there is so much spirit in the stories he tells. That, like, they're horrible stories. Heidrun, one of his stories was about helping his mother euthanize herself.
Oh,
and they gave her a bunch of Valium and some liquor and whatnot, and they were just partying it up on her last night on Earth. And he comments that, you know, his mother made a really good zinger. And the thing about his mother is that she would always ruin funny jokes by telling them too many times. Mm-hmm. And so when she made that zinger, he said, "Mom, that was hilarious. Just die right now. Don't ruin it. Just die." And she died. And heartbreaking and hilarious at the same time. And Doug Stanhope has this bit in one of his skits where he talks about the calliope music that starts whenever he lies down and he's sober. Da, 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 you're 35 and your life isn't going anywhere. Da, 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 well, you fucked up every relationship you've ever had. Da, 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 da. And so, yeah, he gets blackout drunk fairly often. But that guy doesn't shut up his voice. He listens to it. All right. It drives him up the goddamn wall at times, but he listens to his voice.
Well, see, that inner voice, that's your mirror.
And these people, most of them, Doug Stanhope stares unflinchingly into that mirror. He argues with it, which might not be the best, most productive thing he could do. But he doesn't ignore it. I think what these people with no inner monologue do is they've turned away from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know the story of Narcissus and Echo? How Echo was in love with Narcissus, but because Narcissus could only stare into the pond, all she could do was echo everything he said, and he would never pay attention to her.
Right.
He would never look at her. You know, like that, their inner voices becomes Echo, where it can't say anything because they're not looking at them.
It's true.
I think these people used to have an inner voice. Maybe it's not as loud as ours are, but they had one.
And maybe that's a symptom of narcissism. People who don't listen to their inner voice because they're so self-absorbed. They're just wrapped up in having an experience.
Yeah, that's Narcissus. As long as he never knew himself. And no matter how long he stared into that pond, he never knew himself. If he turned away from the pond and listened to Echo, maybe he would have learned a thing or two, and then he would have known himself.
Yeah, he only had a relationship with his reflection.
And that's these people. They, I said that Marvel movie should have been titled "Me and My Faggot Friends Save the Universe." Well, that's the mirror right there. Not the inner mirror, not the true mirror. That's the reflection. These people, they go to the movie theater and they watch these Marvel characters run around like chickens with their head cut off, and they're like, "That's just like me and my friends." It's, oh my god! Like everybody sees exactly what they want to see in it.
Oh yeah.
It's a false mirror. It gives you the answer you want.
Well, they project their illusions onto it.
And they've been staring at that for so long. You know, staring at their popularity on Facebook, or, you know, like who has the nicer house, them or their neighbors, and they've been staring at that shell, right? And the shell, look, it could be the narcissist shell on Facebook, where it's a fake person on Facebook that you're pretending to be. It could be the shell of, look at how nice my house is compared to my loser neighbors. Or, you know, I'm just like these movie characters. It's a shell.
Yeah, it's tragic what's become of people. They live they live virtual lives. They're not present and invested in their own life. And you know, they're going to wake up one day late in life and realize that they haven't yet lived, and now their body is old and their brain is old, and you know, they've wasted, I don't want to say their best years, but they've wasted perhaps their best opportunities.
I don't know if they will wake up. It's stuff like this that makes me question the doctrine on soul annihilation. Have these people annihilated their own souls? There might be nothing left in there, and they just return to the earth when they die.
Maybe.
Well, I guess that's how you avoid hell, people. Watch a lot of Marvel movies, eat a lot of fast food, and shop at Walmart.
I mean, we have a word for people like that in heathenry. Well, our elders had a word for it, and it was called a nithing. It's actually where we get the word nothing from. And a nithing or nithing, sometimes it's pronounced, is a person of no worth. It's a person who has failed to become. And the belief is that a Nithing, when they die, they don't descend into hell, Hel, our Norse underworld. Neither do they pass into one of the realms of the gods, but they descend into the lowest world, which is called Nithog, and there they are devoured by a dragon.
Well, it stops them from chewing on Yggdrasil's roots for a little bit, so it's got some sort of use, I guess.
Indeed. But when you think about that, that's actually an illustration of what you've just described, that there's no soul, right? So the soul doesn't, there's no soul to pass on into an other world or an afterlife, but instead the shell is just dissolved, or rather, I'm sorry, consumed by this dragon.
You know, there's a line in the Screw Tape letters where, you know, this one man comments to good old Uncle Screw Tape, I now realize I spent my entire life doing neither what I want nor what I ought to have done.
Right. That's a tragedy.
Oh, and there's nothing you can do about it. In fact, don't stand between a sinner and a sin. You don't want the attention of these people. Do not, they will push you over the cliff like a herd of lemmings. You know, these are the people that will, this is the mob.
Mm-hmm.
And Conan is great at fighting dragons. He's great at fighting wizards. He's great at fighting other warriors. He is useless when it comes to the mob. Hey guys, not our responsibility.
Right.
Our responsibility is start claiming what it is that we can. Start gaining those assets that aren't going to perish. Right? The gold, not the pyrite. Getting the things that last.
And building something outside of the collapsed empire so that we have something for ourselves and our descendants.
Yeah, like this usury. You know, on the one hand, a market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. Right? And this is actually why you don't try and help the mob. All right, because they will stay irrational longer than you can hold them back. So no, don't try and fix this. The usury is eventually going to collapse upon itself. It has to. It's violating natural law. It's violating basic mathematics, laws of nature. It will collapse eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And not just the financial aspect, but the whole, all of it. The garbage food, the garbage movies, the garbage culture. This will collapse. You can't tell when it's going to collapse. So don't involve yourself with that.
Right. Invest in something that you have some control over.
Yeah. Invest in something that we can, that will last, that we can build.
That's what we're trying to do with the free folk.
And that's what we're doing around here. Yeah, guys, there's a great culling happening. And I think I've mentioned this before, but 2001: A Space Odyssey is about how the TV screen is new, how it's a new reflection. And you can use that. You can use the mirror to gain knowledge, or you can use it to distract yourself. TV screen can do both. The computer screen can do both. I think that most, if not all of you, are using the computer screen to gain knowledge. The people that do will survive. Those that won't will be culled.
That is nature's way.
And it makes the world a better place. Guys,
that it does.
thank you so much for tuning in. We got one last super chat from Viral Journey, $10 US. In the book On a Pale Horse, an atheist commits suicide and the Grim Reaper comes to harvest his soul. However, his soul vanishes. Yeah, see, that sounds really optimistic. You know, the sort of people that ask questions about whether or not there's an afterlife, there is going to be for you. The people that only think about Marvel movies and purple drank, them I'm not so sure about, okay? So they might get away with it.
Right.
But these atheists, I mean, I think a lot of them are great people, and I'm not too worried about where they're going to end up. But a lot of them are just using it for some very ugly purposes. Oh, and VL Journal continues. The Grim Reaper's companion then says he believed in nothing, so he wished to return to nothing. Yeah, if he believed in nothing, he wouldn't have been an atheist. You know, atheists believe in something. They believe in atheism.
Right. An agnostic questions.
Oh, and even they're questioning. That means they might not believe they want to believe. They want to be convinced one way or the other.
Right. They don't accept anything in the absence of proof.
But these people don't think at all. There is no inner monologue.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that can question anything. Thank God we aren't them.
That's right.
And Strontium 19. Okay, everyone's sending super chats now that we're going to close down. Tell you what, I need to take a quick break. Guys, if you got any questions or whatnot, anything you want to contribute, please leave a comment. Great if it's a super chat, but it doesn't have to be. Heidrun, can you run the show for 3 minutes?
Sure, I will. I'll take some questions from the chat, and while I'm waiting on that, I'm going to plug the Free Folk website. For anyone who is interested in the work that we are doing, our website is www.freefolk.org. You can also check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/FREOFOLC. We post podcast announcements there and news and events. And if you'd like to financially support us, we do have a PayPal account set up. And I believe Aurini listed that in the notes. Yes, he did. So you can check out those links if you're interested. Does anybody have any questions for me? I don't know how many. I see a couple regulars here. So if anybody has any questions, I'll try to address them. Nobody wants to talk to me tonight. Sometimes I get questions from the chat. I'm surprised we don't have any tonight.
You know what? I just thought of something else that needs plugging. That video I sent you by Vertigo Politics with an X at the end. And what was the title of it exactly? It's one of his recent videos. But it boils down to something like Christian tradition, pagan soul.
Yes, I remember that.
Guys, we Europeans need to rebuild our civilization. And we need the traditions. Okay, we need to build off our old institutions. We need this stuff. But right now, we have all the rules, but no spirit behind any of it.
Right.
And again, listen, I'm not accusing anybody when I say this. I'm just summarizing. I'm simplifying. The pagan spirit lacks structure in many cases. And it needs structure to be effective. We need to be organized and united.
That is a case where I like to make a distinction between pagans and heathens, because heathens do have law, we do have custom. We are generally very conservative people, and I, for one, do not consider the leftist faction that calls itself heathen to actually be heathen, because they really don't practice our folk ways. But true heathens who do practice folkish heathenry, we do have law and custom and are pretty well ordered.
There needs to be a balance. I would say it'd be great if you could officially declare them as heretics and excommunicate them. But listen, I'm not prescribing anything specific. I'm saying we need both.
But before we wrap up, may I address a question from Viral Journey? He gave so many super chats, and I did invite questions before you jumped back in.
Absolutely.
He's asking, what is the pagan opinion on cucks? I am assuming that you're talking about the typical blue pill beta male guy who gets walked out on by his woman. Is that it? I just want to clarify. If he can answer real quick, I don't want to make an assumption.
Well, it's, I mean, again, I think we mentioned earlier that if we had men running the civilization, a lot of these beta males would be a lot more secure where they are. part of what makes it so dangerous for them is without the beta males, is that or without the alpha males running things, they don't have the game to maintain their relationships. And he confirms, yes, that's what he was asking.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Aurini on that. I mean, we have lost our dominant males. There are very few of them, and they're all outliers now. You know, they really don't have a position within society because masculinity is under attack. So, any man who is a strong masculine male is not going to find a place for himself within the system. He's going to have to work outside of the system. So yeah, unfortunately, the guys who find themselves in the beta community are really sort of wandering around without leadership. I would encourage those types of guys, if they are looking for something that they can actually have a stake in and get some yield some dividends from, to go seek out an alpha male uh, outside of the system. You know,
Yeah, not just a Chad, but somebody that's actually leading and creating.
yes, and I mean, to that point, I mean, I'm gonna recommend you, Aurini, because you've actually started to make an effort to reach these guys with like the workshop video that you did this week, and trying to get resources out there to guys who are struggling and need mentorship. So, yeah.
More of those coming, by the way. I'm going to try to do it about twice a month, just a short workshop video about some practical stuff you can start doing right now to strengthen the foundation you have in your life. So anyone that's backing me for $1 on Patreon, and you know what, like if you're backing me anyway, I'll try and get you the video. You can always just fire me a message on Skype, right?
Yeah.
And I'll send you the link to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great resource that Aurini's providing. So yeah, I mean, if guys are looking for that, go to this guy, support him, send him a couple of shekels, and he'll create great content for you that you can use in your life.
Yeah, and one other thing, I want to divide the guys that get, listen, that guy I mentioned earlier, successful lawyer, not just a lawyer, a successful lawyer that gets divorced, that he gets completely destroyed by the system. That guy I have sympathy for. The schlub who plays video games all the time and watches porn instead of paying attention to his wife, that guy I don't have any sympathy for. It's like, buddy, you deserve what you got. The other guy was doing his best. Okay. We have actually 2 questions for you, Heidrun.
I see that. I don't mind answering those questions. Those are good.
So, who is your alpha male poster boy?
Oh, wow. Well, in fiction, I was inspired greatly by the 1982 movie Conan the Barbarian. I know that the way Conan was portrayed, I mean, granted, it's not my physical type, but I think they did a great job of expressing masculinity through that character. I mean, he was a philosopher, he was a warrior, he was a leader of men. Um, he had a lot of alpha qualities, Germanic alpha qualities that I respect. In real life, I don't know. I think you're pretty alpha, Aurini. And I'm not saying that to like flatter you. I think that what you express and the work that you do and the investment that you make in your people really demonstrates your quality.
I'd be blushing if it weren't all true. I'm Cancer 624, and this is kind of a mean question. He asks, how many white babies do you have, Heidrun?
I have none of my body, but I have many spiritual children. I've been doing folk building work for quite a while now.
Yeah, and that's a true answer. I know this. And Strontium19 wants to know, Our Lady of Mirrors, what brought you to Aurini's channel? How did you find him? And he sends a super chat as well, $5. Thank you, brother.
Well, I was doing some research online one day, and one of Aurini's videos came up in my YouTube search. And to be perfectly honest, I thought that he looked absolutely over the top in this video. He was wearing sort of an outrageous outfit, and of course had the props, the skull and the sword and the cigar and whiskey and all of that. And I was just curious, so I watched the video, and I was impressed with the content, and he well spoken and everything. So I watched a couple of more videos. And long story short, one of the videos I watched was a live stream that had been recorded, and towards the end of it, Aurini was talking about the 9 noble virtues, which are heathen. They're from my tradition. And he mentioned that if there was, I don't want to like misquote you. How did you put it? If there was a heathen out there who actually practiced these noble virtues, that you would break bread with them. Is that how you put it?
I believe I said I'd be happy to break bread with them.
Would be happy to break bread with them. So I took this as an opportunity to talk with him about the virtues. I found it very interesting that a traditional Catholic was speaking about heathen virtues. That wasn't something I'd ever heard before. So I was very interested in having a conversation with him about that. And that's kind of how it all started. I remember I reached out to you and took you up on your invitation. And this was all in chat. And he had referred to me as brother. And it was at that point I said, you do realize you're speaking to a lady.
And now that made me blush.
But yeah, that's how we got introduced. And that's how I started appearing on his live stream.
Yeah, and it's well, here's the thing. I try not to mistake the letter of the law for the spirit of the law. And one of the, in this petty little society we have, this is what people do. They follow the letter of the law constantly. You're not allowed to smoke within 30 feet of the door, completely ignoring the spirit of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? What are you looking at with other people? Like, do they go to church all the time? Okay. Do they follow the spirit of it? So, yeah, I read lots of different sources. Mr. Man says Aurini starring in The Wicker Man. I would have banged that chick. It'd be cruel not to when she wants it that badly. And I'm not a cruel man. That is a sexy scene, though. That's Portishead playing during it, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I assume you're talking about the remake. I only saw the original with Christopher Lee.
You know what? I'm not sure. I think I saw both of them.
Yeah.
One of them actually had Portishead playing. No, was it? I think it was Portishead. It might have been somebody else. Toss down in the chat if you know who it is. Was it Come Now, Come Soon, something like that? Sexy scene. Very sexy scene.
I can't remember.
I would have given that little pagan witch twins. Well, let's see. Any other questions? Any that we missed? You can always repeat the question if I don't happen to see it.
And a super chat will help us to see it.
Again, guys, there's just so much weakness in the church, and like we know it, guys. Let's not mince around it. There's a lot of weakness in the church. There's a lot of people who are being holy, but they aren't accomplishing anything.
We've got the same thing in the heathen community too. There's a lot of weakness there as well.
No, it's everywhere. And I don't want a bunch of people that'll die for their country. I want a bunch of mean sons of bitches that'll make the other guy die for his.
Stone Roses, I did answer that. I cited Aurini as an alpha male.
Oh, that's going to upset a lot of people.
Yeah, let him be upset.
Actually, Mr. Man suggests an alternative. Dolph Lundgren. I got a PhD in physics, I think.
Really? I didn't know that.
He's got some sort of PhD in science. The guy is super intelligent.
Wow, I learned something today.
Oh, Dolph Lundgren. I guess, like, listen, I don't know every detail of his life, but I'd say that's probably an alpha male right there.
Yeah, if he's got the IQ.
Oh, God, Stones on Roses comments. The churches fly rainbow flags now. It's beyond weak. And you know what? Actually, just to touch on this, because I know listen, the whole pedophile thing has exploded once more. For damn good reason, because there's new information coming out and whatnot. But I swear, guys, what really upsets me with the Catholic Church right now is it's actually not the pedophilia, right? Because like the pedophilia is a great, great evil. It really hurts people. It takes something from them that can never be replaced. That said, what upsets me is the heresy put into the catechism. Because the heresy is saying that evil is good. And that in my mind, calling evil good is worse than doing evil and covering it up. Like somebody that does evil and covers it up, you find out who they are and you kill the son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the catechism says you should never kill anybody, no matter what the reason. That upsets me. That upsets me so much more. I know the other one has a lot of fireworks, a lot of smoke, a lot of, it's a lot more interesting to look at. But just because something's interesting doesn't mean it's significant. All right? It's often the things that you don't notice that are more significant. And Bergoglio altering the catechism like this, not to mention everything else he's done, with Amoris Laetitia, which could arguably be translated as the love of sodomy. That sort of stuff bothers me a lot more than this. And guys, the pedophile shit, I'd happily execute that guy by putting a board on top of him and then putting rocks on the board until he stops breathing. All right? Like, it upsets me. The heresy upsets me even more. And the fact that people want to make excuses for it. There are so many Catholics out there that are tying themselves in pretzels to argue that it actually hasn't changed the catechism. Yes, it fucking has. It's heresy. Bergoglio is promoting heresy, period. I don't care if he's doing it with flowery language and you can pretend that he's not. All right? This is the wife at home, the beaten wife saying, he's not cheating on me. He just went to a perfume convention.
It's strong. Oh.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, Strontium says he's out of money, but wants to know, when did you become a Catholic?
3.5 years ago. That's when I was baptized and confirmed. Let's see. Viral Journey sends US $5 and says, does Mrs. hard to spell? Do you know the golden one? I haven't heard of. Is this a YouTuber?
Oh, is this that Swedish weightlifter guy, bodybuilder? I'm trying to think of his name.
Toss some more details into the chat there. Don't have to super chat at all. We'll read it.
Yeah, is it the blonde Swedish bodybuilder?
Wait,
he's like super red pill. It is, okay. I can't remember his name, but yes, I am familiar with him. I've heard him speak on Red Ice. Marcus Folan, that's it. Thank you. Yes, he seems very alpha. He's very intelligent, very well-spoken, conservative, smart guy. And yeah, I mean, he's done an amazing job with his body.
I need to listen to more Red Ice.
Yeah.
I love they're doing these bits where they mix in the cuckoo bird.
Mm-hmm.
The cuckoo bird actually comes from Africa, and cuckoos up in England. And so after that, they play some clip of the latest. Oh yeah, I was just reading today. There's a woman was locked up for 12 years and forced to marry 2 different men and abort 6 children by some British people, we'll say.
Mm.
They were very, very British, the people that locked her up.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know. No end of horrors there.
Wow.
So yeah, I like the work Red Ice does. I'm gonna have to check this guy out.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Well, it's about almost 9 o'clock here on the East Coast.
Yeah, guys, we've been going for 2 hours, and
then there's the sirens coming to get Aurini.
Oh yeah. Look, I gotta explain the hate speech to some officer friendlies right now. Because by the way, nothing scares me more than female cops.
I bet.
They, I mean, I was gonna say there's some good ones. No, there aren't any good ones. they have the entitlement of the woman with the violence of a man, because there's always men to back them up.
Right.
But guys, thank you very much for the super chats. Thanks for the ongoing support. And yeah, guys, have a hell of a week. Go out there, kick ass. I've got some more videos, in there. I haven't rendered them yet, so it's going to be a while before they get up. God bless all of you. Deus Volt, Heidrun, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And guys, take care of yourselves. This is Aurini out.